Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below this video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, father of a stolen child, Arwin, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Morning all.
How are you?
And good night to people on the other side of the globe.
Got a message saying David Weiss said he wants to join the panel. Send him a link, Arwin, if you can. As your former moderator of DITRH, I'm pretty sure you can manage to send him on a link if you know he wants to join. Up early, is he not? Arwin's ignoring me completely at the moment.
Well, that's what he said in my chat, and it was actually him because he did have a wrench, so it is very early, I agree.
No, fair enough.
I don't know, I don't have him on Skype though. I don't see him in the chat. Hold on.
I hope he comes on because I want to raise.
Can't be any more early than California.
Let's crack on with housekeeping. Also, there's something that Adam's requested I do at some stage in regards to the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. Its description of how it came to pass, and maybe an explanation of why we have hyena thrown in there occasionally as well. But I'll do that after we do a bit of housekeeping. If everyone else is keen to crack on, I'll check if everyone's off mute in Discord, as I haven't actually done that yet. But any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known AJM. Can you hear us? AJM, can you hear us? Because we can certainly hear you. Okie dokie.
Sounds like he's in the middle of a storm.
Indeed. Sphere edge horizon, anybody at all?
No, that's what we're asking for. If you have a ball, you're going to need a physical geometric horizon that blocks things. Not mirages, not optical issues, perspective.
Well, when it appears to block things, it could be a mirage. You never know now. Oh my goodness.
If you just imagine that your circle of view is actually a sphere edge, then you might think of it as a sphere.
Yeah, indeed.
So the furthest you see, that automatically says that's a sphere edge, just because it's the furthest you see that day.
Hold on, thinking of it doesn't make it a sphere edge.
Yeah, it's synonymous
Well,
though, isn't it? So when someone says horizon, the automatic assumption on a globe side of this argument is that it's the edge of a sphere Earth. That's what their horizon is. Meanwhile, we only have one horizon, and the horizon in their begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator is physical and geometric. The one we see in reality is not physical and is not geometric and is not Earth curve. Our horizon is not Earth curve.
What was Tim Osmond's famous quote about the horizon?
Nobody claimed the horizon is Earth curve, end quote, Tim Osmond, after having the Black Swan argument put to him. If the Earth is a sphere radius 3959, then every measurement to the horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That would be the geometric horizon and its limitations. And the Black Swan images show beyond the limitation of a sphere radius 3959 is our horizon. Therefore, the horizon is not Earth curve.
Didn't he come with pictures too? that same day?
Yes, the pictures he had were of the horizon and labelled "This is Earth curve." Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
The evidence of an axis?
Hold on, Earth is flat. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, hot mic, but
Earth is flat. Can you pop yourself on mute? Or join a live show, leave yourself off mute and bugger off from your mic. That would be my best advice too. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for your participation. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No, and good morning.
Hey, Chocolate.
There's endless arguments why we don't see deviation, though.
Well, that's the new argument, right? You argue, you make the negative argument for the positive claim. That's like global logic in 2021, like
Yeah.
levels curve, shit like that.
Levels curve. We wouldn't expect to see drift. You know, basically anti-flat Earth arguments are what we're highlighting these days.
Not non-visible horizons, you know, all that good stuff.
How is something going to have a radial path without a radius? That just does not make sense.
Any evidence of the R value? That would be Earth radius.
We can derive it from a presupposition of positions of celestial bodies in relation to the Earth's surface.
No, you can't.
You know what something derived from a presupposition is? Not non-existent.
That's not true. The presupposition does exist.
Look, all Arwin's trying to do is offer him a route in to beg the question of R again by way of deriving a non-physical location called the equator. Right, Arwin?
Yeah, it's derived, I know.
Anybody want to flog that old dead rotten horse with flies coming off it in Discord?
But the thing about it, though, even though it's not proof, of course it isn't, really. But yeah, there is this weird orientation of the celestial bodies in relation to the Earth's surface, and that's still kind of left open, like, why is it orientated the way it is, you know? So it leaves this open gap. Why are the celestials orientated like that?
That's where you got to watch what Arwin says, especially words like it, right? It is orientated. What's it?
The non-Euclidean based celestial lights?
Well, sod all to do with what's on the ground then.
No. They are orientated in a very specific relation to the ground that is persistent.
Go on then.
well, my tree.
Hold on. Go on. Beg the question then, Arwin. Or should I say Bullwin?
What? No. I'm not gonna
Well, I
beg
gotta
the
make-
question.
Okay, go ahead over that. Don, go ahead.
So to make a point, I got trees surrounding my house outside. They're oriented perfectly, matching up to my house, but it doesn't tell me the shape of my house.
Doesn't it,
But
though?
Hold on.
It
Go
is-
ahead, Arwin.
Don't they? I bet if you all leave it growing, eventually that, yeah, your house may wither and get destroyed, and then the trees will all be surrounding it, kind of sort of revealing the shape of what the house used to be inside of there a little. Didn't think I was going to say that,
What if
did you?
game?
I don't know how that's related to anything. So very.
Where you went with it, Arwin?
Look,
I
if no
know
one's
you gave this example of why you can't use the orientation of something other than the object itself to determine anything about it, and I kind of disproved that on the spot.
no, you didn't. Nobody highlighted that it was a non sequitur fallacy.
Just did.
I said what if. Sounds like a what if game.
Is anybody other
Sure.
than Baldwin going to peddle this nonsense?
I'm not Baldwin right now. I never presupposed anything.
He did. You
I was
presupposed.
just...
Oh yeah, you haven't actually made the claim yet, have you? All of this is benign. Then you haven't actually made any claim in this regard. So this is kind of, let's move on because we're not getting anywhere with this. I mean, that is ideal ball tactics, though, isn't it? Don't actually make the claim. Just talk a load of nonsense that's a prerequisite to the bullshit that you're going to claim later.
Yeah, but if it was really for the ball, then I would have quickly dropped in a presupposition somewhere, though.
Yeah, admittedly, you know better. Let's move on. We've had, what, axial rotation and earth curve, or have we just had earth curve so far?
R
We had
value.
Earth curve. We had R. We had R because I whispered Black Swan already, so that's done.
Yeah, I did that because we were talking about R. So let's do any evidence of axial rotation of the earth-based variety.
John already asked, do you need axis first? So, do we have one?
Yeah. Lockstep motion of the air causes hurricanes.
Lockstep motion of air. How does that work out?
I don't know, but they say that the Coriolis deviation causes hurricanes. But if the air moves in lockstep with the rotating Earth, then how does that lockstep moving air cause the hurricanes?
When you
put
start
yourself-
that off with they
Hold on.
say, it kind of sounds like a ghost story and shit. Like they say. It's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
Sorry. Is that Nathan? Oh. I'm feeding back.
What's going on? Why is it all gone quiet?
I think Eli's trying to talk, but I think he's feeding back.
All right. Try again, Eli.
Yeah. I think I might have forgot what I was trying to say though.
That's all right. There's plenty more housekeeping
Um,
questions. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Black Swan.
Well, first you'd have to know what it is. So as soon as somebody can give me a solid definition, then we could attempt to formulate a hypothesis about that definition.
Not about the definition, about the observed phenomena. You don't formulate a hypothesis based on a definition.
Well, you gotta start to define it first before you can get to a phenomenon. Right?
No, first you have to
No.
observe it, not define it. Define unicorns for me, Arwin.
Well, generally we know it as a horse with a horn on its forehead.
Excellent definition. So now we're going to validate by way of hypothesis the unicorn phenomena that is magical unicorn time travel.
Well, no, but now that it has been defined, it can better be established that it isn't actually abiding by a phenomena in order to apply the scientific method.
Oh,
See?
well, that's super useful. Yeah, meanwhile, in order to have a hypothesis, there's only really two things in a hypothesis if you ignore all the things that are going to be kept constant. One is the phenomena. That would be your dependent variable. You're definitely going to need that. And the other is your assumed cause of that phenomena. Your independent variable, presumed cause of the effect you're studying. And the effect you're studying is the phenomena. And the phenomena is the occurrence. And the occurrence is not a definition of something. It's an observation of it. You watch something happen and go, I wonder what causes that.
Why don't you just assume the phenomena? Why
That's
can't
what
we
they do. That is what they do.
that? Oh yeah, there you go.
But what phenomenon?
All objects go down.
Just make one up.
All objects. Yeah, no. You just you conjure one out of maths. So you say all objects have got a force of down, and when they're stationary, not doing anything, they've actually got a 1g down on them. 9.8 meters per second, applicable always to everything. And when you're actually in free fall, then the other end of the scale, you're actually at a 0. You're in 0g when you're actually hurtling towards the ground. So you just move the positioning one either side, and suddenly you've got a force when nobody's doing anything. And then you go about qualifying what that force is. And if somebody challenges that, you go, well, without the force, I'm presupposing when you're not doing anything in equilibrium, you'd float off into the sky. And you go, would I? Yeah, because I've presupposed a force that's holding you here. Let's calculate it.
I have a question
So-
about that.
The same way you can assume forces, you could just assume optical phenomena like the geometric horizon, right? You just say, oh, look on this piece of paper, there's geometric horizon defined as visible, and then somebody will come around and tell us, no, that only exists in the math.
Well, they don't have an accurate description of their phenomenon either because it's built on a false assumption.
Well,
Well, when you're making it
how
up,
about
I mean,
acceleration rate, right? Isn't that supposedly some sort of a phenomenon claim? The acceleration rate of things falling or going up?
Things
Well,
don't,
things
to add,
are actually
to add
happening.
to,
Though.
things don't fall at the same rate though, do they?
yeah, to add to the 0.98 point square meters, but with the Cavendish non-experiment, they're measuring a horizontal path where the lead balls are attracted to each other. What's the variable
No, I
of the
mean,
Earth acting upon it?
It's not, it's mass attracting mass. So the fact that it operates in the horizontal plane is irrelevant. Doesn't matter. The phenomena they're assuming to be studying is the problem. The hypothesis being if mass, then mass attracts mass. Number one, what's mass? Number two, where do we observe mass attracting mass in nature? Where's the phenomena occurring? Well, mass doesn't attract mass. It's violated by the behaviour of gas, which has mass in their vocabulary. So, mass isn't attracting mass. If I was in the chat now, I'd put a little arrow pointing towards my own name and then a helium balloon emoji next to it. And watch it go up the chat, rising up.
And
If
how
I
would
was
you
a glober, I would just say, well, the definitions of words are meaningless. Therefore, we don't care what mass is. It just attracts itself. So that's nice.
How are
Hey,
you going to
Globers.
calculate? How are you going to calculate mass if you don't know the volume, and you need the radius to get the volume?
How are you going to calculate mass when you don't know what it is?
Hold on. As per usual, John has drawn a swift conclusion to this conversation. Can you just repeat that, please, John?
How are you going to find the mass of an object if you don't know its volume? You can't calculate anything without its volume, so you're going to need the radius for that.
Yes. Precise. Well, I'd like to also add to the chemistryworld.com. Moreover, studies have shown that the amount of substance is often incorrectly identified with mass. So what is mass?
Yeah, that's a description of mole.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody say inertia quick.
Well, it's a mathematical ambiguity for anything that exists, right?
It's called an equivocation fallacy. Having two definitions for something is an equivocation. So you can't have two definitions for one word when you're using it in the context of one description. To just use that as a means of changing what it is at any given circumstance.
Well, what I'm saying, though, is the only things that really objectively exist or physically exist, are objects and objects in motion. Like, so there's your ambiguity.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics.
No. No. What's crazy is like you can actually say no to that, and like there's no rebuttal. Like a Glover might come on and say, "Oh, you guys are dumb. You don't understand." Yeah, but well, can you answer the question? And they'll find a way to obfuscate or, attack you personally, it's crazy that the answer is straight up no.
Yeah, shockingly, there's no science for the globe.
Nobody in that field uses the scientific method. It's guesswork, it's leaps of logic.
You missed out the stutter where Michio Kaku says nobody uses the scientific method.
Well, that's
Yes,
where
that's
that
very
invisible
important.
I was using that as a defense of heliocentrism, though.
A defense is that they don't validate anything empirically. Oh wow, what a great defense.
Yeah, they guess at it till they get it right. Right? That's how they do sky science.
Well, they have actually got phenomena, though, haven't they? I mean, there's a methodology open to their use to establish cause of those phenomena, and they have got a fair crack of it. You know, it's not like you can say this isn't a phenomena. Why would we just study it as which? It's like, well, it is a phenomena. You just make up a story about it.
Their story is not very good because they have the proponents on their own side saying this is the greatest mismatch of between theory and experiment in the history of science. That's pretty bad because they're talking about your cosmology, guys. Globers, the same guys who live in your cosmology, tell you it's a mismatch, the greatest one ever in the history of science. That's terrible. Maybe that's why you guys tell us now that science doesn't prove things, huh? Funny.
Got a question from Sleeping Warrior, which I will ask at the end of housekeeping questions. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nope. The sun, well, it isn't entirely a black body.
Well, you need a radius for that too.
Yeah, that's true. We're going to need a radius for that distance. One of my Patreons actually asked a question in regards to Venus and what exactly is it about the R value in Venus. And I responded, number one, Sleeping Warrior got all this information. I didn't do any research on it, but nevertheless, Venus is assumed by Christian Huygens to have the same R value as Earth, assumed to be a sphere with an R value. So you can apply Kepler's third law and get all the scaling values to give you the distance to the sun. Well, that requires you assume Venus is, quote, Earth's twin. So if you ever wondered, I wonder why they call it Earth's twin. Well, now you know why, because it's assumed to have the same exact R value as Earth, so that you can presuppose and get the scaling values. Because if you just have an apparent size of these things in the sky when they're traversing other things, you can't scale any of it. So you need to make a certain number of presuppositions in the heliocentric model to actually get to those values to give you those distances at 93 million miles for the sun.
And supposedly that's where we observe super rotation. So yeah, that makes sense.
What? Super what?
Super rotation.
Yeah, that's the button on my blender.
You don't remember the citation I pull up whenever we're talking about how the atmosphere, the air in the higher part of the atmosphere somehow stays lockstep with the rest of the planet? And
No.
they say, yeah, we witnessed this. We don't know how this works, but we witnessed this on Venus, so it's all good.
It's a first law of thermodynamics violation. It'd have to increase the velocity of the unbonded gas that's claimed to be in lockstep, i.e. bonded with the ground beneath as it rotates. Well, it'd have to increase its velocity as it goes up higher, because the circumference of the distance it's going to have to travel is going to increase as you go higher. Well, that means it's going to have to gain energy to stay in lockstep at a higher altitude. First law of thermodynamics violation. Can't just create energy out of nothing. It's complete horse shit anyway, because it's utilising a claim when you're describing Coriolis effect, which is supposedly proof we spin, even if you're talking about it in context of Venus with the same exact claim, that we see drift because the atmosphere isn't in lockstep. It's obviously not in lockstep. It's completely unbonded. That's what gas is, unbonded. So to say, well, it's bonded to Earth and moving with it, it's like, number one, that doesn't give you a Coriolis drift to show us 15 degrees an hour deviation to prove we spin. It's your explanation for why we don't have any proof we spin.
Yeah, we'll just put the word super in front of it and it all checks out.
That doesn't work, no. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Not even a little bit.
Would we have to assume R for that?
Yeah. Centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, molten iron core. Yeah, you'd need R for that. Is that it? Did we cover all of the housekeeping questions? I think we did. Oh,
Did
no.
you do gas pressure?
I didn't. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Well, what about atmospheric law?
Atmosphere is an oxymoron. Atmo means air. Sphere is a fundamentalist religious presupposition that air, instead of taking the shape of its containment, takes the shape of a sphere arbitrarily around a marble they assume with an R value.
So it'd be wrong on its face because the radius value doesn't exist.
Yeah. Can't have atmosphere, sphere-shaped air wrapped around a marble if you haven't got an R value for the marble to wrap it around. In violation of the second law of thermodynamics, I might add. Gas expands to fill the space it has available to it. It's an entropy increase. Dispersion would occur. We'd all be dead if the sky was a vacuum. It's not. Space is fake. So, Sleeping Warrior says, Nathan Oakley, 1980, can you answer a question my, quote, listening guest has for you, question mark. The question is, ... Why does he run a show if the content is always the same, question mark. Well, number one, you can't possibly have every single show the same. That's impossible. That's the first thing. The second thing is, we are, for the most part, the Western world is under the impression we're on a sphere, and we can demonstrate that to be false. Now, until there's a case that everybody in the Western world realises they've been lied to, or that it's just a religious belief or a philosophy, then we have a place to point that out here. I have a show as a result of that Western world belief that they're on a sphere. So it means I can bang the same drum all day long every day. As for it being the same, yeah, we intentionally, Anthony Riley being a main part of this, created housekeeping questions to give consistency to the beginning part of the show, bearing in mind that most YouTube viewership, if you're a cursory viewer, will be short. In other words, they'll come for the first part of the show, then probably tune out, unless they're an avid watcher of the show and enjoy the entire show. Well, you want to get the main points across in the first part of the show, when it's a live show at least, so that people can understand that they're not on a sphere. It is a religious belief, or, as I say, philosophy, model, that they've been sold from birth as their world. And it isn't. Now, I can, as I say, keep banging that drum all day long without any issues whatsoever. And people will still come along and tell me I'm wrong, because most of the people here in the Western world think they're on a sphere. And we're not. Hope that answers your question.
But when they tell you you're wrong, are they coming with any evidence to show you where you're in error, Nathan?
Well, often they think they have evidence. Evidence is proof. So to believe that you have evidence is to believe that you have proof of the contrary. Now, upon dismissal of their evidence by way of rebuttal and refutation, you can say, no, you didn't have any evidence.
I got a question about that guy's question. How many times has he watched your show to say every episode is the same?
Every episode can't be the same. That's an impossibility.
That's what I'm saying. Like, is he an avid watcher? Is that what? And he's, I don't get the question.
Listen, people have an issue with the housekeeping questions because they have an issue with the housekeeping questions, but they are necessary to be asked every day until we get an answer, which we'll never get an answer because Earth is flat.
Well, I just want to point out that no one no one actually said that they had a problem. Well, the person didn't say that they had a problem with the housekeeping questions.
Or an issue with it
but
being.
that is a problem, though. I'm telling you, I've heard it before. That's what I'm trying to say.
I know I would agree with you, Neil, and I would agree with Eli. It's not actually implied that that's why the question was asked. But ultimately speaking, there are plenty of people out there who say, oh, it's samey, we'd rather not have the housekeeping every day. It's not necessary. It's like, are you a globe believer by any chance? Have you answered these questions? Of course you haven't. I get plenty of kudos and thanks and support, financial support from people who like it, who say, yeah, I like the fact that you are banging that drum constantly. You're a voice for this deception that's consistent. And there's going to be people who come here at a cursory glance and don't appreciate that we're doing this daily, and we've heard every argument at least 100 times. They're still going to say, yeah, but don't you realise gravity? We're going to go, yeah, we do. We'll tell you all about it.
How many times have you actually changed the housekeeping question?
Never. We've added to them a couple of times.
So you've added new questions. You've never actually changed the form of the question?
No, never. They've always remained the
Yeah,
same.
you have.
Go on then.
You had to add in the change the axial rotation to the Earth-based variety, right?
Yeah, that's because of Ranty. So every time I asked any evidence of axial rotation, you go, I got a bicycle, or I got, just describe something with axial rotation. And you're like, yeah, okay, of the Earth-based variety.
Was that
Right, yeah.
foreshadowing?
That's what I was talking
To the
about.
numptiness.
But no, other than that, I mean, they might have got refined in terms of the way that it's phrased ever so slightly. But realistically, no, they've not changed. We added any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics, because that is so poignant in terms of the globe claims. They're claiming they've got science for the globe. And if you deny that you're on a globe, you're called a science denier.
Actually, remember at first that the first question was always any signs of Earth curve, right? Now that's been changed a little recently due to the geometric horizon being debunked and all that. So now that's why the first question is what it is now. But
Yeah, it's changed to any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, as opposed to any signs of Earth curve, which is how that has subtly changed. You're right.
Well, the only reason I ask is, how long have you been asking these questions? And it seems a bit unreasonable that nobody's come with a decent answer.
like 4 years now.
A long
I thought
time.
by now some scientists would come forward.
If my memory serves correct, this kind of started with the whole thing with what's his name, Paul, and the molten iron core evidence that he was supposed to bring for Riley, something like that. Am I correct, Nathan?
Yeah, that's how it started out. I mean,
Paul Voigt, yeah.
Paul Voigt, correct. He said he'd got evidence for the molten iron core, but we were just too dumb to understand it, or something like that. But ultimately, it was Anthony's original idea, and then a lot of the questions were already being asked in a different way by Quantum Eraser, and they got formatted into something that we could continually ask. And yeah, they've changed subtly. I take it all back. I say they haven't. They have. But the base of the question remains the same. It doesn't matter if I have to qualify the question a bit more these days. Geometric physical horizon as opposed to any evidence of Earth curve. And it's a qualifier that's worthy of being there because it's assumed automatically when you say either the horizon or Earth curve that they are synonymous, that they are one and the same thing, in fact. And they're not.
I think it even started off with like Sleeping Warrior asking about Paul Voigt and like something like, is there any sign of Paul Voigt and this evidence for the molten iron core? That actually might have been like the first question, to be honest, if my memory serves correct.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Him saying any signs of Paul Voigt with the evidence for the molten iron core. So as much as the molten iron core is the least favourite of my housekeeping questions, other than when once a month, maybe less, we get to talk about Thea, just drop it into the conversation because it's a farcical story that gets a laugh. But other than that, it's a really stupid question, if you ask me. But that was the first one, right? Anthony asking for Paul to provide his evidence.
So that's why you kept it. I've wondered why it stayed in the lineup, since you have to make a bunch of presuppositions to even try to get to the molten iron core that pilates.
Because it started with that one, and then as the show progressed, we would add on to it because other subjects would come up, and then we would just add on to it. We would start the show with any signs of Paul Voigt. For a while, it was that. Any signs of Paul and his evidence of this core. And then after a while, we just dropped the Paul part. It just became any signs of the core, and then other questions, any signs of gravity, and that's how it turned into what it is now.
That was BS.
When we were doing that, like the ballers or now the anti-flat earthers, they literally came after us, making even more of such claims. It's like, oh yeah, that means I'm going to prove the curve now to you. So we just got this pick of these crazy fallacies of things that they thought they've proven, and then it turned into the housekeeping questions.
Right.
So wait a second. What show was that? Like number-wise?
Oh, I don't.
Because I don't remember that at all, and I came in around the late 600s, 700s.
Okay, we could reminisce about this, but instead I'm going to read out Retro Bill Super Chat. So, if airplanes being flung by a rotating Earth are conserving momentum, thus resulting in no drift, then what on earth would pilots need to correct for? Same for snipers, field goal kickers, etc. It's a good question, but slightly malformed. Thank you very much, first of all, for the Super Chat, Retro Bill. I really appreciate the support. Now, correcting for Coriolis, this is a misnomer, because you can't, as a pilot, correct for Coriolis, because Coriolis effect is only capable of being observed if you are rotating beneath the thing you are observing. So it's not like you can get an aeroplane pilot, get a call that says, ground control to pilot number 47, you have somebody watching you from a roundabout, please correct your course. Obviously, somebody observing a plane look like it's drifting because they're on a roundabout wouldn't need correcting for. Now, the claim is Earth is that roundabout, turning beneath anything not attached to give you 15 degrees an hour drift. So the cause of Coriolis deflection, that would be Earth turning beneath stuff, would cause problems for flights, hence we give the example. If you've got Coriolis deflection observable from the ground, 15 degrees an hour drift, because Earth's turning beneath, then a flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles would only take an hour and a half because Earth would be turning beneath it, for you to observe the drift from the ground known as Coriolis effect. In reality, the flight takes 4.5 hours because it's not turning beneath. That would be Earth isn't turning beneath the aeroplane to shorten the flight time. But it's claimed to be turning beneath a field goal so that you from the stand can observe it seem to drift. Well, that seeming to drift from the stand is Coriolis and is only capable of being observed as you turn beneath, not from the projectile. The trick, going back a couple of years, it hasn't come up recently, Retro Bill, but the trick is to get you to start detailing what happens to the projectile from the projectile's perspective. So what happens to the plane from the plane's perspective? Well, that's nothing to do with Coriolis. Coriolis is only capable of being detailed and described as you turn beneath.
Or you can get a confession like...
It would be much worse if it was reality, because the pilots wouldn't be correcting for an apparent drift. They'd be correcting for an actual spinning Earth that they need to land the plane on. Can you show us the pilots that do that?
Yeah, but if you push them hard enough, they give a good confession like Hillbilly Blue Balls. And he says, but we're not on a roundabout, Nathan. Thank you very much. We agree. Earth is motionless.
Yeah, that would be Blue Marble Science. Now, I took it from I don't watch Blue Marble Science, but somebody I am subscribed to had done Flat Earth tests. Subscribe today to Flat Earth tests. Good videos. But he'd done a response to Blue Marble, where Blue Marble was obviously responding to me. And my explanation where I caught a cum virus out by saying, okay, so we're on a roundabout, we're looking at an aeroplane, we're going to see it drift, right? Because we're on a roundabout. Looks like it's drifting because we're turning beneath it. Yes, all good. Now let's transpose the exact same Coriolis drift example onto Earth. We're going to see the hot air balloon drift because we're turning beneath it, aren't we? Well, no, we're not going to see it then. It's like, well, then we haven't got this effect. We haven't got Coriolis. Well, Blue Marble Science's response to that would say, well, we're not on a roundabout. It's like, yeah, but we claim to be. We claim to be turning about an axis like a roundabout. That's what Globe Earth claims. But you've got to deny the claim that we're like a roundabout because we don't see the effect.
What he really meant to say was we're not on a non-inertial reference frame.
Yeah, but we need to be to see Coriolis deflection. Exactly. You're saying, oh, well, we're not on a roundabout that's non-inertial, turning beneath things to see drift. No, we're not. That's precisely the point. We're not seeing drift. We're not turning beneath stuff. We're not like a roundabout.
Yeah, welcome to stationary Earth, big blue marble idiot.
Great confession.
Yeah, they have to go to anti-flat Earth rhetoric where they deny their own claim in the first instance that the globe is making in order to combat a rebuttal from us where we demonstrate that we're not turning beneath stuff. We're supposed to be to give us Coriolis deflection at 15 degrees an hour. We don't experience it at all. It's occasionally exampled by the high priests with footballs going through goals in a curved trajectory as you watch them from the stand because Earth's claimed to turn beneath the ball. That's the actual claim from Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's what's supposed to happen. But it would also turn beneath aeroplanes and hot air balloons and drones and you if you jumped up and down. And we don't observe that effect. Quick shout out to Godzilla 37. Hi, ballers. Just super chatting Nathan again to make you happy. I'm sure I'll hear about it later, winky face. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Godzilla 37.
Still going to need a R value for that axis.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're halfway there. We've got Blue Marble Science saying we're not on a roundabout. It's like, yeah, just transpose that into the effect you're supposed to have when you see drift because you're on a roundabout, Earth turning beneath stuff. To give you Coriolis effect, you're supposed to be on a roundabout, but we're not. We don't see drift. And his response was also say, what the hell are you talking about? Why would we expect to see 15 degrees an hour deviation in a hot air balloon, as is claimed on the globe? Why would you expect that, you crazy idiot, said Blue Marble to me. Why would you expect to see 15 degrees an hour deviation as we turn beneath a hot air balloon? I wouldn't expect to see that, Blue Marble. You would. But as you rightly point out, we're not on a roundabout turning beneath stuff to give us drift, as claimed by a globe.
I don't think they think things through before they say something.
Well, to add in the folklore pendulum, which the Earth is supposedly rotated or underneath it, which is very interesting that a hot air balloon can hover over the same spot for a few hours and still be in the same location. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense whatsoever.
Which bit doesn't make
Because we're
sense?
not on a roundabout.
I was going to say, because we're not spinning beneath anything, but which bit specifically?
Well, the being in a non-inertial reference frame. Now the ballers will jump in and add, oh, the Earth is in lockstep or not fully lockstep. They don't know. They can't make up their mind that the weather balloon or hot air balloon will be rotating with the Earth, which will be an inertial reference frame now. But it doesn't make sense. But the folklore pendulum, I call it the folklore pendulum, is in a non-inertial reference frame, so that can spin. But the weather balloon, it just doesn't make sense.
Okay, so the pendulum is swinging back and forth. All pendulums do is swing back and forth. Back and forth, back and forth. They don't drift. They don't move in a figure of eight. They don't deviate. They move back and forth. That's the inherent property of a pendulum. Now, that pendulum is moving back and forth in the inertial reference frame. However,
Correct.
you are claimed to be standing on the non-inertial reference frame. So you're watching it seem to drift and knock over the dominoes. It's not really drifting, it's just moving backwards and forwards. And Earth is claimed to turn beneath it at 15 degrees an hour to cause the apparent, because it's only moving back and forth. What do you mean only moving back? It's obviously knocking over the dominoes. No, that's Earth claimed to be turning beneath it. Coriolis deflection. Inertial and non-inertial reference frames drift observed from the non-inertial in the inertial as you turn beneath. That would be an effect that would cause hot air balloons to drift away at 15 degrees an hour because you're turning beneath them. You, on a non-inertial, claim to be spinning reference frame of an Earth that spins like a roundabout, and the hot air balloon not attached to it, drifting away as you turn beneath it. That doesn't happen. So then we're asked, you crazy idiot, why would you, the flat earther, expect to see Earth turn beneath a hot air balloon? I don't. That's a globe claim that doesn't happen. But we get charged with expecting to see drift, like we're ever going to claim it as flat earthers. No, we don't claim to expect to see drift. You do, it just doesn't happen. The globe claims we will have drift, it just doesn't happen. And when we, the flat earthers, point out it isn't happening, you ask us why we would expect to see it.
Right. Yeah. It's just a bunch of double speak.
I think the two main misconceptions Globers have about Coriolis, one is that it's a force, and the second being that an object has to be moving in the non-inertial reference frame, i.e. if an object is just hovering, like a balloon or a drone, it wouldn't experience Coriolis.
Yeah, no worries. So we break that down. You put a drone on a roundabout, and just so I can make the example a bit later, I'll say that on this roundabout, you've got two maps sellotaped to the bottom of the roundabout. One's got England on it and one's got Japan on it. And you launch the drone. According to the example you've just given from an anti-flat Earth perspective, you would say that the drone then follows along with the England part of the map when it's not attached to the roundabout. Therefore, we do not see the drift of the drone anymore. It moves with the roundabout, somehow is moving along with the roundabout when it's hovering. That's what you're saying. Total nonsense and a non-drift claim.
Yep. What would you say to people who call it a force? It's measured in newtons, isn't it?
Look it up. It's an illusion. An apparent, meaning seeming but not actual, effect. I.e., when described with a roundabout, with my drone and the maps on the roundabout sellotaped to them, you push the up stick on the drone, it launches and hovers, and the roundabout continues to rotate beneath. If you are on the roundabout, looking at the drone hovering, the drone would appear to be flying towards you. Now, the drone isn't actually flying towards you. It's the not actual force of Coriolis that makes it seem like it's flying towards you, when in fact it's hovering and you are rotating towards it. The effect you observe is the not actual force of Coriolis making the drone fly towards you.
Yeah, and this is how they confuse people, right? They call it a fictional or pseudo force. I mean, why would you even call it a force? And why would you measure it in newtons?
I'll tell you.
Actual?
Well, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. Because you can actually observe this effect. The reason it's described as apparent is because you can see it. It appears. So you see, if I give you a different example, no, let's stick with the same example. You've got the drone, and it's hovering above the roundabout at about head height. And you rotate towards it. Well, from your position, it just looks like the drone's flying towards you, and you go, oh no, the drone's coming towards me, smack! And it hits you in the head. Well, what force, in quotes, caused the drone to fly towards you? It didn't, it just seemed that way. Well, the force that you observed, because you did see it happen, it flew towards you, is the Coriolis force. A not actual force, but it still caused a drone to seem like it was flying towards you from your perspective. From your vantage point, the drone flew towards you. Like if you're on a travelator and you hold your hand in the air, it looks like the sign above the travelator comes towards you and gives you a high five, when in reality you're moving towards it. But from your perspective, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until you hit it with your hand. But it's really not moving. Well, the effect of it getting bigger and bigger and bigger and coming towards you is akin to the Coriolis deflection. A not actual effect, just seems like it. That's why it's described as a force.
Not just that, Nathan. With regards to newtons, no, you can't measure it. You calculate newtons.
Well, if you have an observer standing outside of that merry-go-round, right, and they'll be in a non-inertial reference frame, while the person on the merry-go-round throws a tennis ball straight out in the horizontal path, the non-inertial reference frame observer will see a parabolic flight, while the person on the merry-go-round will see a straight path while the merry-go-round is rotating underneath it. They won't see that, but the person in a non-inertial reference frame will see that.
You got it wrong way around halfway through, but yes.
Yeah,
The person on the non-inertial rotating reference frame who throws the ball will see a parabolic trajectory of the ball because they're moving away from it after they release it. The person who's not on the roundabout watches the ball just go up and down.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
Meanwhile, none of those effects happen on an Earth that's claimed to be turning, and we would notice. You'd notice if you threw a ball in the air and it drifted away at 15 degrees an hour, that would be 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. You'd notice that. Doesn't happen, so we don't notice, because we're not turning beneath anything. We're not having the example validated by evidence that we can see occurring. And when we point out that we haven't got the claim that we spin validated by evidence we see occurring, we're told by anti-flat earthers, why would you expect to see drift? You hold your hands in the air as a flat earther and go, I don't expect to see drift. I'm pointing out that we don't, and you do expect to see it. It just doesn't happen on a globe because we're not on a globe and we're not rotating.
Remember back in the day when Xanax showed up here, he was telling us how somebody's on a merry-go-round and they're throwing a ball. Well, apparently that ball doesn't leave the non-inertial reference frame because somebody else that's not on the merry-go-round looking at it is still seeing it. So therefore, it hasn't left any reference frames. Remember that beautiful argument?
I do.
This is a dangerous topic, though. Like, if you don't know how to beg the question right, you can get confused in the lingo.
Indeed. So I would like to arm my audience with a very useful, very quick, very sharp sword to chop the head off anybody who claims that we've got an axial rotation of the Earth-based variety. Well, John, what could we possibly offer the audience in that regard?
Can't have an axis without a radius.
Swan. Okay. Adam.
Yes, sir.
You sent me an email saying that you wanted me to discuss the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, and the slightly looming non-standard refraction high in a holographic projection of things like lighthouses from beyond the formerly reified geometric sphere edge horizon. What specifically did you want me to detail about any aspect of that very long description?
Well, first of all, to get the full description out correct is a skill in itself. Really, I'm just wanting you to explain the fundamentals of why we say all of those things. A little bit like the housekeeping questions, I suppose, what you were saying earlier. It kind of built up over time as one baller brought another claim that kind of got incorporated into the description a little bit.
Okay.
So I suppose it was just to break those little bits down and who added each bit and why. Fundamentally, that explains why we say that big cluster of words.
So, begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking, Earth curve calculator, and the slightly looming non-standard refraction high in a holographic projection of a lighthouse from behind the reified sphere edge horizon. Let's break all of that down. Begging the question because it's assumed in the title of the maths. Earth curve calculator. So they're already assuming that this observation is comparable to their assumption of Earth curve. Therefore, it's begging the question. Proof of nothing. It's got an R value in it and we've debunked it. So you can't assume your R value in R you trust is no longer applicable. You don't have one. Without an R value, it's literally proof of nothing. Perspective hijacking. Got the Rayleigh criteria at 1.22 over lambda. That's not the correct maths. Adam, reel off the Rayleigh criterion. I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, 1.22 times lambda over the distance.
Aperture size. Yeah, I did know it. Should trust myself. Right.
Yeah.
So you've also got 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet in the Earth curve mathematics, which are in a perspective omitting orthographic representation. That would be to say that you see the side of your own head when you're observing a target that in a photograph would not include you seeing the target in the same frame. And this has the effect of allowing the observation to have feet and inches applied to the target, or meters, which don't change with distance. So if you can visualize standing next to a lighthouse with a 200-meter height, and you look up, you have to crane your neck to look at the top of it. Well, if that's at 10 miles away, it'll be on the horizon. You're not craning your neck anymore. You're looking at 90 degrees. But it's still 200 meters. Right? Well, no. It's angular size. It's apparent size. That would be, again, appearing but not actual. Actual being feet and inches or meters. Has changed with distance. But their perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator puts it into what we call Muppet vision. Why Muppet vision? Because you see the side of your own head. Well, that is a way of removing the perspective. Moreover, hijacking perspective to call the horizon Earth curve. So, that's that first section in terms of begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculations. Then we've got slightly looming, an old description from the rumpus in regards to how you know something is refracted because of its position with respect to the horizon. End quote. It would be, again, quote, slightly looming. Now, Tim Osman presented a piece of information or an image that had hyenas in the mid-foreground that should have been behind a physical geometric sphere edge. So, obviously, the question arose, are these slightly looming non-standard refraction hyenas that are no longer behind a physical geometric sphere edge? And of course they were. Slightly looming hyenas. So hence we have the slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena. Holographic projection. That would be to say, what you see is definitely not what you get when you're looking at a clock in the distance or a lighthouse in the distance. It's actually a mirage. A projection, a light show of something that you can't really see. And how do you know? Well, because it's refracted with respect to the horizon, a geometric tangent point. So your slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena, holographic projection of a lighthouse or a clock from beyond the now debunked physical geometric sphere edge horizon. As I whisper, black swan, which you no longer have. So there you go, there's the full description of why we have a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of a clock from behind the reified sphere edge horizon as per the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. I thank you.
Well,
Thank you very much, Nathan.
I don't think they don't really have the actual description of what lumen is. Ballers can't even explain it. That it's just where the apparent sky reflects off the apparent water or the position of the water.
Yeah, but that isn't what Rumpus was claiming previously. So that's how the anti-flat Earth rhetoric comes in now. That's how he's banned.
Yeah, the lie. Yes, the lie about it. Where it was formerly, you know it's refracted because of its position with respect to the horizon. Now the horizon is also refracted according to them. Formerly, the edge that was blocking things, now a non-physical position that only exists in the maths. Well, as a direct consequence of us debunking they now, this would be Rumpus, has to lie about what they formerly claimed about the physical geometric obstruction at the horizon that is known as Earth curve. Now, I quote, the geometric horizon only exists in the maths. Formerly blocked the Isle of Man, though, didn't it? Hence the lies that have to be told.
Which is what I think that the horizon also looms now, making a paradoxical mess for the Rumpus that he can't get out of.
Yeah, a paradoxical mess because you can't loom the horizon because their looming, in quotes, is terrestrial refraction. That would be 7/6 of the radius. And the radius is derived from the geometric horizon, and in order to make the maths function, you need a tangent to do the geometry, and the tangent point is the horizon. So you can't refract the horizon with an R value that's derived from the horizon. It becomes paradoxical. Correct, Adam? Any more for any more? No? With that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!